What's going on, everybody? Okay, here, back at it again with another video, and today, Guilty Gear. So, I actually have a lot to talk about. I took a lot of notes for this. There's a link in the description, once again, and this is to, a pretty, well-known European Guilty Gear player named Shinjin, his blog, and it's a translation about an article about Guilty Gear Strive. I've read this like a couple times over. I think it's a pretty good article too about like just what they're thinking about the game. Obviously at Japanese Expo, JAEPO. I feel like Japanese Expo is easier to say, but they had a Guilty Gear Strive exhibition. They had a bunch of matches between pretty well-known Guilty Gear players. Pretty interesting to watch. Probably the best Guilty Gear Strive play we've seen so far. And there was a lot of discussion between like the players and the devs, and what Shinjin translated is not everything, but it's just like the points that he found to be important. And I want to talk about some of them because I thought they were pretty interesting. So the main thing is like at the EVO build, and you saw it a couple of times in here already, there's a new type of air dash that is in Guilty Gear Strive. So like right when people are starting to feel pretty good, it's actually pretty funny because in my case, right, I literally like 1 week before EVO Japan, I played at Frosty Faustings. I was like, okay, you know, like I'm kind of feeling it. I think it's kind of fun. I didn't play that much, but you know, it has all this stuff, most of the stuff that I think is important. And then in the new build, people show the new air dash, and people are like, "What is this air dash? Like, what is this?" Right? So I'm gonna be going through a couple of points that I think are pretty important. Try to expound on a couple of things personally from my perspective. So one is like balance. So balance, I actually think that ArcSys has been doing a really good job with balance overall in their games for a long time now. When I started playing ArcSys games was BlazBlue CT, right? And they mentioned, of course, Guilty Gear has had pretty much both extremes in balance, right? So there are Guilty Gear games where there are extremely, like there are literally bad characters, like very, very bad characters that you just shouldn't play, right? And there are Guilty Gears like Rev, where it's overall pretty balanced. Most people would say like the weakest tier is B. So I think overall ArcSys balance has gotten so good overall that like people who are newer actually, if I can say it this way, they actually don't know what a bad character is, right? Straight up. They don't know what a bad character is. They pretty much, and we're just gonna skip ahead here. They pretty much, like the character is low tier, so they're bad, which is not the right way of thinking it about it, you know? Like, it's more that, like, the other characters are really good and this character's just okay, as opposed to, like, they're bad characters. Like, BBCT Tao, we used to think, like, oh, this is a bad character. Or, like, another example would be, like, BBCS1 Noel, right? So, BBCS1 Noel, I remember picking Tao, and this is when Taokaka was not considered good in the States yet, right? But, I was like, isn't this one of the best characters in the game? BBCS1 Tao versus Noelle is you jump around and fly after you hit her one time, and Noelle can never catch you, and that's it, and that's every round, right? That's a bad character, okay? You can't do these types of things in games today, generally, right? Generally, the main thing, like I said, is the character is good, it's just the other characters are better, right? The other characters just have more stuff in the end. And it's looking like this game, and they kind of know what they're doing at this point. I feel like Persona had pretty good balance overall. Besides, like, I guess Shadows and stuff like that. Guilty Gear, even Guilty Gear Xrd has had overall pretty good balance. So, I'm not really worried about that for this game that much. The first thing I was actually surprised about was ArcSys said they want to increase the risk of jumping. So I'm thinking, how? Because as I said on this channel, one of the ways they make the games easier secretly is by making jumping good. So they'll say, oh, we're making the game easier, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, a lot of the stuff they add, we end up finding out, oh, this actually adds, like, a lot of depth, or, like, there's, like, some type of decision-making that makes it, like, interactive between two players or whatever. But jumps, usually in almost every game, jumps, they make the jumps good, they make it hard to anti-air somehow for some reason, or, like, they don't give you a lot of return, or something. They just do something with jumps to make the jump good, because new players will jump, they always jump, and that's just an easy way to make the games easier, right? So hearing them wanting to make jumps risky, I'm like, compared to now, because right now in Strive, Jumps look mad good. One, you can block the normals in the air, right? DPs don't really anti-air the right way, right? There is the pushback and the super serious risk gauge, but like I'm not sure how much the later threat of getting hit matters if you're not getting hit right now, because like in the most case, like I know if this is using like let's say current Guilty Gear as an example, but like if I'm playing Milia and you're playing Soul and you air dash at me badly and I anti-air you, I'm knocking you down, and that's like my win condition, right? That's pretty extreme, as opposed to I make you block in the air and then FD doesn't add risk, but like I have frame advantage and I get to do offense. Like what's worse, like I get to do a block string or I knock you down, access my win condition? I think that question is pretty obvious. I actually agreed with the players who play tested the game that the new air dash looks really, really hard to deal with. If you've seen on Twitter, they haven't really been using it too much in these matches so far, but if you see on Twitter, like the first clip we saw was someone like doing it pretty slowly, and people were like, wow, they're killing the game, oh my god, I'm a Guilty Gear, I'm gonna kill the game, okay, right? But then later clips showed that like you could do really fast low ones, you could do the delayed high one, you could basically change your speed and angle. So like one of the really fast ways you could do it is that you could like, let's say you were like in a jumping range and they have a projectile, you could do it so that you fly, you just fling yourself 45 degrees, just like straight down forward, really, really fast. And if you know a lot about GG, anti-airs, they're not like in Dragon Ball where like if you have a move that's an air attack and you use an anti-air, you just win, right? In GG, it depends on where the air move will hit. So these type of air dashes should just beat Guilty Gear anti-airs. So it looks extremely hard to deal with, especially because you could vary the angle. There's a couple of the new air dashes right there, forward air dashes, I mean. Since you can vary the angle and speed, it looks really hard to deal with, and the game is telling you it's coming because of the seal. So as soon as you see it, you have to make some type of choice about it. I think it's really, really hard to deal with. Now, normally in Guilty Gear, this problem exists, but it's usually by like character. Like usually a character will have a move that does it. So for example, like Soul, he has the dive kick, right? So he jumps above you again. He used both his jumps. You know it. He knows it. So you can anti-air, or he could do the dive kick and make your anti-air whiff, right? Potemkin, same thing. He has a jump, you know he can't air dash, so he jumps at you. You know he could press a button or do nothing, or delay his falling speed by doing the butt slam, and you have to like adjust for it, right? So like this one though is pretty extreme, universal, and like I said, pretty hard to deal with, especially because like ground normals at the moment are not guaranteed air unblockable, right? You just have the weird pushback where you send them flying down. I really want to see what they do next with jumping, considering that they said we want to make jumping riskier. Because right now, I really don't see it. Okay. Next, defense. So defense is something we talk about for a long time because... so I'm going to use another extreme, Dragon Ball, to talk about defense. I pretty much think IB and FD is perfect, right? Those are really good systems. The only main thing about IB is that it's not easy to do. Like you have to learn how to IB. You have to practice how to IB. But once you do it, you get access to like a whole slew of defensive options because you basically have control over your defense, right? You can push them away, but you give them a little bit extra advantage, or you can keep them close to you, but you get more advantage, or you can just guard normally. It depends on like what your defensive strategy would be. So in this game right now, there's no IB, it's just FD. High level GG, FD is certainly a thing because like higher level players will create strings where like they, for example, will do stuff where they get the frame advantage without being pushed back by using projectiles and stuff like that. There's all sorts of little trickery you can use. I think you need IB to mitigate that. I found it pretty surprising that they don't like instant block. And it's probably because you have to sit there and learn how to do it. One of the things I kind of notice about Arxis is that they want even if like the higher level player understands the nuance of the defensive option more, they want it to be immediately accessible to both players, which is probably why they don't like instant block that much. And that's why I want to use Dragon Ball as an example, because one, Dragon Ball is an example of a game where the majority of the players think defense is not good when it's actually amazing, and two, the defensive options of the game are immediately accessible to everybody, but you have to be good at the game to use them well. Things like, especially guard cancel, reflect. These are things that are immediately accessible. They're not hard to do, but you have to use them well, or else you're gonna get smoked, right? That's one of the reasons why people think the defensive is weak. Also, of course, there's the risk return, but I'm not gonna get into that too much, because at least in GG's case, I'm not so worried about the risk return part, because so far at least the characters have been mostly let's say like traditional GG characters, so they don't combo a far hit, stuff like that. Instant block, just getting meter like Granblue is kind of why I'm saying like it doesn't really do anything. Like, yeah, you get meter, which is cool, but it's not like the main thing you would want to use instant block for. Like, most people don't tell you use IB to get meter, right? Most people are telling you use IB to get more frames so you could like act. I don't really know what they could do to make instant block easier for people, or easier accessible, besides just making the window for it bigger. So we'll see what they do about that. Next is the knockdown characters, set play characters, Okuzeme characters, whatever you want to call them. Okay. From a dev perspective, I could definitely understand why you wouldn't like these type of characters. Same of course, from a player perspective, right? We have characters like Snap Boots. What was the quote? What LK is doing right now is cancerous. When I was doing the Snap Loops of Team Gohan, right? Characters like Milia or like Lychee or stuff like that. Like, I get that. Like, you do want it to be more about like a two-player interaction, right? And a lot of these cases, like, it's not that Okuzeme characters are strictly like one player per se. What the main thing about them is that a lot of the responses are not so direct, right? It again goes on like looking at the whole player base. A lot of the responses to that are pretty much not so direct, or you have to like use some type of big resource to try to escape and reset to neutral, or you have like the big picture answers like don't get hit in the first place and stuff like that, right? Now, I think actually Granblue is a pretty good example of how they're trying to like deal with these type of characters, because it's not like, because people like playing these type of characters. I generally like playing these type of characters, right? So like in the case of like say a character like Fairy, right? She has set play. Obviously, we all know she's got the cat GG that she can set on you, and she has also an install too. So, but there are ways you can like route her combos into like the two, like using the two together. The install obviously costs meter, and then there are the cases where like there's like an RPS interaction if you choose to not use the EX version. Like, there's a lot of things about it that are a little bit more obvious, I guess. And if you go for the EX version of the cat, then you can't do it for a while because there's cooldown. So I see her as like a way of like, oh, they're trying to approach this a new way. It's gonna be interesting to see, because hopefully they should add Milia. I don't really have too much thoughts about it, besides they just like don't want it to be like so blatantly strong, I guess, or so your ability to loop it, like as in repeat the set play. They don't want you to do it too much. It's gonna be weird for Milia, I think. Exerd already kind of shows it to you, because like, so Exerd, like, of course we came up with ways to like balance the risk, let's say. Long story short, when you set the disc, there's two ways you could do it. There's one that's like risky, but you get better mix-ups, and there's one that's less risky, but you get like a safe mix-up, right? I hope they kind of go like that path. We just gotta see when they hopefully announce My Girl. The last thing is going to be about the difficulty, and I found there's something that was said that I found super, super interesting. And first off, I think a lot of people, again, have a misconception about what's actually hard about fighting games like this, right? Especially GG. And because Guilty Gear is, most people who enjoy Guilty Gear only play Guilty Gear, or Guilty Gear is their main game or something. They eventually grow a specific idea of what it's supposed to be, but only from their perspective, right? So the main thing that I found really interesting, and I agree with, is Guilty Gear Strive is a difficult game with limited Gatlings and tons of situational decision making. Now, if your level is not that high in Guilty Gear, you might think this is a really stupid, like, statement, right? How could a game with limited Gatlings have a lot of situational decision making and be difficult, right? The main thing about the limited Gatlings is, so generally, I don't have the hard numbers per se, but like when I play tested, for example, again, like the Gatlings are pretty short, right? But you have ways to do classic GG stuff with like the special moves or how it's built, and you have like plus frames available and stuff. So when you have like short Gatlings or like generally limited ones, your decision making on what you're going to do is pretty short. Like so far, there are not really a lot of characters that have like super active moves where you have like a lot of time to sit there and make decisions about what to do. My example I'd want to use for that are like characters in Dragon Ball like Vegito AA, where the first A kicks like 4 times and then he does a slow punch, or GT Goku where he does a jab and then 5 more jabs. During that time, during the animation, you could literally sit there and be like, alright, what am I gonna do? And the defender is gonna like prepare for it, right? As opposed to like, let's say your 6P is plus, right? So you do it's 2P 6P, then it's 6P plus, you just gotta make a choice like right away. Street Fighter players would understand this more for sure than most anime players. Just because there's a lot of Gatlings doesn't necessarily mean, you know, there's going to be a lot of choices. It usually means you're just sitting there making a decision about where you're going to go. And one example would be like Kokunoe. Like 1.0 Kokunoe had mad Gatlings, right? So what you basically did is you would just sit there, you'd push yourself out to a certain spot and either set like an orb or try to get close again. She had multiple spots where she could go overhead and low. So you would just do stuff in the overhead, do stuff into jump cancel and move again. Like pretty straightforward, right? As opposed to a character like, I'm gonna use BB again. So Makoto has pretty open Gatlings, but like the choices you can make are kind of limited because you can't. If the later you go, the less things you could do. So you'd have to like use the early parts of your strings to try to like reset pressure and stuff like that. As far as the situational decision making, this is again what I keep calling the traditional problem of GG, where if you can't combo off your far pokes, right? What are you supposed to do when you hit them? What are you supposed to do when you make them block? Stuff like that. Most high-level players of the game understand this. Most people who are new to the game don't even know that it's like a thing. They just kind of like play through it. Or they pick a character where it's not a thing that you have to worry about, right? Because in Xrd you have characters where it's not a thing you have to worry about. But definitely in this game, it looks like it's something they want to be done overall. I actually sort of thought about this with Grand Blue so far. Like, Grand Blue is definitely a game that's made with new players in mind, and I've been thinking recently, I wonder if their main thing with the game is that they just want people, like, let's say it's 2 new people playing each other to have, like, a good time, and then at the same time, if you're, like, high level, playing in a tournament, some type of tournament, then they want you to have fun as well, because if there's a skill gap, right, in that game, I feel like it's pretty hard to overcome. And I would get the same impression for Guilty Gear Strive right now. Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that because that's one of the main things. Like, I feel like a lot of people, and again, like, so I don't really have an opinion on the game, hard opinion on the game right now, right? Especially because they changed the game so much from the build I played. So I basically have to wait until like the close beta to try the game again as it is, right? And one of those things I enjoyed and I thought it was okay, like I said, they changed the game. So I'm mostly indifferent. I'm just like, I want to try it, we'll see how it is, blah, blah, blah. Is there even a character I like to play, etc. But I feel like there's a certain type of Guilty Gear player who is like caught by the romance of all like the mechanics, how developed the game is. Because you gotta remember, part of the reason why the game is difficult is because the game is so developed as it is. This is kind of like a reset point because they're changing a lot of mechanics and stuff like that. And they're kind of just like high-nosing, being like, oh, the game's easy, there's no Gatlings. Oh, the game's easy, there's no combos. Like, this combo took 3 years to find or something. And to those guys, I'm like, you guys just have to chill. Like, you really have to chill. You are like putting this conception that you have about the game, about your expertise in the game, about what you think the game is on this game that's not even out, you haven't played, and you don't know anything about. So besides like interviews and watching, for the most part, like game journalists play. Like, this is basically the best play. Either game journalists or people who have played Guilty Gear, but they don't get an extended period of time with the game, right? Like, you are the group that has to relax the most. It's quite frustrating to hear these people make statements about GG from that specific perspective, right? In the end, I don't really know what type of game... This game could be bad on release, like, honestly. Like, there have been a bunch of cases where, like BBCT, right? The game comes out, we find a bunch of garbage, lack of a better word, okay? We find a bunch of garbage, ArcSys goes, whoops, and then next game comes out, and they try to fix and build, right? Or the game could be good on the first release and everyone has fun. I don't know. I hope these things were interesting to you, made sense. Like I said, really good article. Take a read if you want. It's in the description. Like and subscribe if you feel like it. I probably will not make another Strive related video for a while. I want to wait for the closed beta before I make any more Strive videos. And I'll see you next time. Peace